Rest assured, this recall is not about public safety. It's about PL avoiding justice. That's why they've spent over $250,000 lying to you. This recall is tearing the fabric of our community.
Our hope lies in mending that tear. Vote no on fraud.
In the 123-year period from 1860 to 1988, Pacific Lumber logged an average of only 0.7% per year in the freshwater watershed. From 1995 to 1999, that rate skyrocketed to over 6% of the watershed per year.
Every year, it costs the county thousands of dollars to remove tree sitters.
Paul Gallego says we're gonna get tough with you tree sitters. Mr. Gallegos, could we get a hand here?
They're cutting on the tree I'm in. I repeat, their Pacific Lumber is cutting the
tree. This thing has been going on, been fomenting for years. Hippies come up and they go to college here. First thing they learn is we've got to save the headwaters. Yeah? What for?
Peace!
At Pacific Lumber Company, you've been reading about it all week. We began an operation to rid our forest of a serious pest.
About a month before the tree sit extraction started, the new Humboldt County District Attorney Paul Gallegos filed a $250 million lawsuit against Pacific Lumber, alleging fraud.
For the first time, it wasn't just environmental activists, it was property owners that had risen up and were insisting that something be done.
The information we received is that they had provided false information to the governmental agencies, which had enabled them to get an expansive permit.
People from Elk River couldn't shower. They couldn't irrigate their fields because the silt was destroying their pumps.
And as these problems worsened and worsened and worsened, they started going to various agencies, the Board of Forestry, California Department of Forestry, and they're getting nowhere.
The county and the sheriff's department and the rest of the bureaucracy just goes along with them and says, okay boss, they're your trees, you say you have a permit to close down the road all day, sure, we'll go right along. But then the county doesn't actually take it upon themselves to check into these things.
Recall is an affront to our democracy. It is being bought for, paid for by Pacific Lumber Company and its parent Maxim. Maxim is a multinational who has made a reputation in Wall Street as being one of the most corporations that's engaged in legally questionable tactics in its 25-year history.
So this bandit made out not only with a lot of money and destroying Humboldt County's future of forestry and maybe fisheries, but he also dismantled the Endangered Species Act.
One false, misleading act that results in reliance to the detriment of the people is an unlawful act. You don't need more than one.
They had a plan. They did this for a reason. They wanted a confrontation between the Endangered Species Act and private property.
We want timber products. We want the jobs associated with it. We want the impact, the beneficial impact on our economy that those jobs and those salaries produce. But we don't want it so badly that we will take the cost regardless of what the cost is.
So instead of doing the right thing, what they did is they pulled a scam.
Pacific Lumber give millions of dollars every year. Really. They're good company. As a matter of fact, they're growing more timber than they can cut.
Paul Gallegos has mentioned that the Pacific Lumber Company is trying to buy the district attorney's office, but the lumber company, PL, is a little bit late because it's already bought. The environmentalist, septic environmentalist, has already bought it, and so are the pot growers. It's not for sale anymore because they've already bought it and got control of it.
Just like the rest of the community in Humboldt County. We can do, you know, one of two things. We can roll over and die and let Maxam trample all over us, which is what they want. Or we can fight them, you know, we can stand up to their bullying tactics at whatever level they are engaging them.
So we can either turn tail and run, or we can stand and fight. At Pacific Lumber Company, we decided to stand and fight.
In 2002, I climbed up into a ancient old-growth redwood tree where I stayed for a year without coming down and touching the ground to draw attention to the destruction that was happening both to the forests here in Northern California, as well as to the damage that was resulting to the local residents who were experiencing flooding and you know, the inability to get to and from their homes, the inability of emergency vehicles to get to and from people's homes, resulting from liquidation logging. Maxam Pacific Lumber owns about 75% of this watershed, and the damage that they had done here was just off the scale and affecting hundreds of people's everyday lives.
You have anything to say, Remedy? It's been a long time since you've been on the ground, almost a year.
Time to stop cutting ancient trees.
In the 1990s, there were a number of residents who were living in some of the watersheds that Pacific Lumber Company owns the forest lands in. They started noticing siltation of the water. Their pumps and filters just weren't cutting it anymore. It would knock out the pumps, or it would damage their filter system, and the water was just unusable.
Why is it in this country that Americans will sit back and watch rural America be sacrificed?
Good afternoon. I'm Grady Langlois. I'm a resident of the Freshwater Valley, and I've been a resident here for approximately 40+ years.
I'm John Estivo. I dairy in the Elk River Valley.
My name is Louis Souza. I've lived in this property for approximately 10 years.
My name is Larry Ward.
I'm Christy Wrigley.
I'm Ralph Krause.
My name's David Dibble.
I am standing in the middle of my dying orchard.
We live right on Freshwater Creek.
My wife and I have lived here on the North Fork of Elk River since 1958.
For the last 7 or 8 years I haven't been able to run any cattle here because the fences have been all wiped out, and I run electric wire, but in the wintertime it's I get no pasture land at all.
Basically we gave up on the cattle because of the high water every winter. When it flooded, there was no place for the cattle to go.
We are surrounded by 500 trees that were mostly planted about 1975. And I used to get 1,000 to 1,400 boxes off these trees. I may get 50 this year.
The collateral long-term damage that is occurring is something that's going to last here for years and years and years.
Since then, every significant rain we've had has caused flooding in this area.
The floodwaters, when it flooded, would go right over to the house. And so I built a concrete wall. It starts over on the far side of the house, comes down the property line, and then across the garden area to the barn.
You can see my irrigation sprinklers here. The sand gets in them and they wear out quite quickly where they pivot there. It's hard to pump without getting any kind of sand in the intake.
This well that I have here, my lower well, the water in the last few years has become totally contaminated, and that's a 100-foot well, and in the wintertime it just pumps nothing but muck and silk, and I don't know how my animals stand to drink that water.
This is a 4-foot fence post, and it's at least 3 feet buried.
To maintain the profitability of a timber harvest, you have to have increased volume. And with increased volume comes increased amount of areas of land that are clear-cut. And with the increased areas of land that are clear-cut, the cycle is repeating itself over and over.
The tractor logging has created many, many miles of road per square mile of land up there, and all of that is bleeding mud. The winter harvesting, or hauling in particular, has generated vast amounts of mud. The clear cutting opens huge areas of land to the effects of weathering and erosion. All of this mud is moving downstream. Our hills are bleeding, and you cannot stop the bleeding if you continue to open the wounds.
And I'm certainly not any scientist in this regard, but I don't think it takes a scientist to make the equation between the amount of logging that's going on up there and the problems that we're having down here on this part of the creek.
Pacific Lumber President and CEO Robert Manny sent out a letter to all Palco employees and retirees in which he accused the residents of these watersheds of a lack of character and integrity and said that they led empty lives.
It's really a pleasure for me to be in the midst of what I consider the real environmentalist.
Now, water rights are the single most basic property right that someone can have. You know, a piece of property without any water is useless.
We may be on the brink of holding Hurwitz and Pacific Lumber accountable for the vast destruction to valuable habitat, to irreplaceable old-growth redwood forests. It's just heartbreaking. These guys have left a wasteland.
Also, the very illegal and improper relationship between Pacific Lumber and the law enforcement, Humboldt County Sheriff's Department, and the way that those two entities together treated activists as well as local residents.
This is an official warning. You're in violation of the vehicle code for being on the road. You're in violation of the penal code for being off the road. We're requesting that you leave the area now. You'll be subject to arrest.
I want to publicly acknowledge the courage and the dedication of our employees, our professional climbers, and both the state and local law enforcement for their extraordinary efforts. And I hope everyone in this room understands how blessed we are in this county to have a great group of dedicated officers and law enforcement people. I want to give
Officers were screaming and pushing people, and I was screaming back at them, no violence, please stop pushing. And he said, you're going to get pepper sprayed.
Our efforts are working, and we intend to stay the course.
It was not a fun day, and I continue to have nightmares about it.
Some woman who lives in Fieldbrook was writing about that she felt she had been jostled and not treated very well, removed from the redwood tree that she was sitting in. But not once in that whole long diatribe of words did the issue of trespass come. That's not their land.
But you know, whatever the law comes up with, you go along with it, because that's our system.
Also pretty disgusted at the fact that their main tree sit extractor, Eric Schatz, has a history of domestic violence. And so if Pacific Lumber didn't know that, then shame on them. If they did know, then that's even more terrible.
So who are these people behind these attacks who are trying to change us and change our society's values? Some are sincere and well-meaning.
These residents were not coming at this as activists, as anti-Palco, anti-timber, anything. A lot of these people had worked for the timber industry. A lot of these people were very traditional, conservative folks. And it was difficult for them at first to start saying to their neighbor, look, you know, there's a problem here. But that's what they would do at first. And it would go nowhere.
Some are driven by votes and politics.
People elected me, I think, to make this community safer. I see that as one of my fundamental obligations.
By breaking his campaign promise, Paul Gallegos is giving tree sitters the green light to break the law. On March 2nd, vote yes to recall Paul Gallegos.
Safety Yes is a interesting name they have chosen. The only safety they seek to obtain is safety for their corporate policies.
And some are just downright wacky environmental extremists who equate trees with human life.
Every single bicycle trail I ever rode my
My BMX bike down when I was 10 years old ends in a clear cut now. Every single one. That's why I'm here today.
Hell yeah.
They're deep ecologists who don't believe trees should be harvested anywhere on the planet. They're people who believe that man is a blight on the earth. They're people who wish for famines to reduce world populations.
Please think about it as feeling human beings. Please think about what you're doing.
They won't be satisfied until everyone in this room is out of business, without a job. In other words, extinct.
This is right where we were standing in the river right here. You can see the difference between irrigating and not irrigating. Because I have to stop my irrigating, it's soon going to be looking more like this side of the river. And as you can tell, that's going to raise havoc with my feed cost, and that's my way of life.
What we've come out with is perhaps some methodologies to prevent this in the future if there's the political will, which, you know, is very iffy.
Yeah, they're really the bedrock of our community. They bring a lot more than they take.
Interestingly, the PR firm that has been hired by Pacific Lumber in the past is the same company that created that Willie Horton ad. They're the same company, Hill and Knowlton, that created the PR campaign for George Bush's the first incursion in Iraq, where they literally made up stories about the Iraqis going into Kuwait and stealing incubators and taking babies and tossing them against the wall. Turned out that was just a false, just nothing about it true. They did that because it created fear and justification. The same thing is happening here.
Raping a little girl should land you in here for a very long time, right? Not if Paul Gallegos is a prosecutor.
And they wanted to make themselves look like victims. So, you know, they took out all these ads, full-page ads in the newspaper, television ads, radio ads, calling us eco-terrorists and all this other stuff, so that they could play the victim with all of this.
I think we're just hearing one side of the story. Well, we got, look how many people are here that is with the, I don't know, what do you guys call yourselves? I mean, them. I would call them, I got other names, but I won't say it. This tree climbing is, they took it too far. It's escalated. Ever since Butterfly, they let Butterfly get away with it. You know, they paid her to keep everything. That was a mistake. Now you got tree climbers thinking they can save all these trees. It's gone too much. You know, you're just hearing one side of the story. And well, that would be the timber industry. It doesn't get as much media because we're basically working all the time. We don't have time.
Just the fact that any company would cut down huge acres of ancient primeval forest is a sign to me that this culture hasn't learned anything and is so arrogant of its own ways that it's very dire.
It very quickly evolved in my mind as a line in the sand. This is the gunfight at the OK Corral, and we don't plan to lose. The very most important thing about our entire system is called the market, and the market dictates the price of things and it dictates the terms. That song about this land is your land and my land, no, not yet. No, it's Pacific's land. And if the hippies want to buy it, if the market says we'll sell it, then put up your money. But otherwise, no. This is a fight to the end for them too. If they don't make this, they ain't gonna make it.
The other significant timing with the extractions was they began in Freshwater the week that the war in Iraq started. And consequently there was a media blackout. And so a lot of what happened in Freshwater, up in the trees, was not on anybody's radar because of the blackout and because people were understandably very distraught and concerned with the war that was being waged in Iraq. So it's, you know, Pacific Lumber probably thought that all of this would just fall by the wayside after the dust had cleared, but little did they know that we were gonna take them up on their offer to fight them in court, and so it continues to get a lot of attention, and it has not gone away.
1, 2, 3, and... It's hats off to the working man, the man without a song. Just the daily ring of a hammer for fortune. But he breaks his back most every day, just for some man to say, give me your payment due. Your hands are my hands too. Well, poor man, rise up. Well, I know your day is long and hard, but poor man, rise up, 'cause your place is here and now. Your time is running short,